Hello and welcome back to my lair. I am not joined by Mango today, so it is just me, your host, the Rambling Lich. And today I would like to talk about sewers. Up there with forests on one of the first environments an aspiring adventurer might encounter, the sewer, while still close to civilization, presents a much different challenge than outside environments. You aren't necessarily cut off from your shopkeepers and civilization the way you are when you leave a town, but often the problems you encounter in the sewer will be much more integrated into whichever town you're in. Shady cults meeting down there, corrupt politicians meeting with thieves' guilds, corrupt mayors or nobles meeting with thieves' guilds in order to bring in illicit materials, and general nastiness and detritus from within a given city. It all kind of flows through there. It's almost its own underground city, the mucky reflection of what's above. Generally, this is going to be an environment you will find in upper medium to large cities, smaller towns, settlements, so on and so forth. Depending on the kingdom's current tech level, they may or may not have a running sewer storm drain system. Or it could just be an area where it's so rural that nobody bothered to install one. In which case you're looking at outhouses and flooded fields, which that becomes its own issue. But back into the city. Generally speaking, whenever you are going into the sewer, it's because whoever is putting you onto that job is unwilling or unable to go down there themselves. The guards might deal with the spillover of what comes out of there, but for whatever reason are under orders not to pursue within themselves, or they might just not want to. Somebody, releases their pet, quote unquote pet, monster into the sewer, and it grows into massive size, and it becomes well known that it's in there. Of course nobody's going to go in the sewer, and they're going to try and send some poor outsider from outside of town in there. Always be skeptical of the first job you're given whenever you walk into a city, because you are utterly expendable. That said, what kind of creatures can be expected to be found within such a location? There are the obvious oozes that permeate such a realm, sometimes even kept and approved of by the city itself as a form of self-cleaning system, considering that oozes are generally made out of some form or another of acid and will self-propagate within the filth, and they will break down various organic matter that seems to find its way down there. But you'll also find vagrants who might just be trying to find somewhere to not die in a ditch. The destitute, the insane. You'll find potential organizations under there. Many cities have an unspoken rare rat infestation. Many cities have an unspoken about were-rat infestation. Thieves' guilds will find their way down there, as it's somewhere most civilized folk don't particularly want to join. And several of the more antisocial types of the world. Your lone necromancer who has decided for whatever reason to use his city's local sewer as his training grounds instead of the local cemetery. Perhaps because he can steal people's cats easier and nobody wants to check the storm drains. Like I said, various antisocial behaviors. This all accumulates in a degenerate and just nasty location. Never mind what gets flushed down people's refuse system, be it throw chamber pots and let the rain take it away, or even a working plumbing system, both of which can be better or worse. If you're just throwing chamber pots out into the road, at least then you know you can go down there before the rain and maybe only deal with the shit on your heels instead of on your waist. Maybe. But this also makes it a great location to hide things, expand out tunnels, and generally make sure that you're not bothered. Because that's the kind of people that you find in a sewer. People who don't want to be bothered. Maybe they have no problem bothering others. Surely they have no issue bothering others. But this is its own kind of system. And it is a quintessential dungeon filled with potentially arguing factions and its own bloody politics. Maybe there's a cutoff between the sewer runoff into the slums, where instead of adding the sewer under it, they just empty it into a waste canal in the middle. So it's just open access. And from there, you get various beaten down peasants who develop a particular kleptomantic habit going through into said open sewer, coming out in the higher, wealthier districts, performing smash and grabs or light-footed cat burglary, and then fencing it in some form of outside flea market, pop-up market. Maybe the were-rats actually have a small colonial settlement underneath of said noble district, and several of the families use it to pinch heirlooms back and forth from each other, all with the were-rats never really saying their extra clientele, so it becomes a bit of a game to them. Could imagine Noble's stuffy butt paying the random were-rat 100, 200 gold pieces to go and snatch Sir Wigglebottom's mirror, only for 2-3 weeks later, Sir Wigglebottom paying the same were-rat to go and steal Snuffy Butt's prized pen. Petty squabbles such as that is, well, petty. And somehow that just goes out of control, where the captain of the guard finally turns to the outsiders and goes, "So many of my nobles are reporting petty theft from quote-unquote ratmen, and now this problem needs dealt with. Please go into the sewer and deal with the rats." And suddenly you feel like every single first level adventurer's cleanup job. And it can spiral out from there. Maybe they run into an argument between the peasants and the were-rats, where the peasants are just, again, trying to survive, but the were-rats are now charging them extortion fees for trying to get through the sewers. All the while, the slimes congregate in the moist, decrepit, and dank sewers, while the merchant who took in a book from a wandering trader and his son found said book, found a couple of interesting paragraphs, and started practicing on the local pet dogs and cats that now have a shortage. Except sometimes they're found and sometimes they are not quite as lively as they once were. And all the while this happens under the feet of the good common folk, who would prefer to be none the wiser. Understandably so. Do you really want to know about the giant worm thing slithering around your sewer system that seemed like a good idea when it was at the time, when it was maybe the size of an overly long garden hose and the thickness of, I don't know, an ale barrel. But now it's grown 3 times that size, can barely fit in the tunnels, and anything that moves around in the sewer knows about it, understands that if it comes up out of said sewer, you're probably looking at a casualty event in the upper tens to triple digits, and somebody's gonna have to deal with that. Maybe it burrowed deeper, and now, on top of your regular sewer system, buildings are collapsing because it's just created sinkholes. And this was all done under some bureaucrat's administration so that it could keep the sewer clean. We'll send somebody down every few years to kill it, and we'll add more. We'll keep the population in check, and then they don't, because it never gets written in the books. And now there's a giant burrowing monster infestation. The possibilities for problems in a sewer are nearly endless, and sometimes extremely funny. Like I said, the idea of various nobles paying a bunch of were-rats to steal the same trinket 3 times over from each other in a kind of petty squabble that they don't really want, anyone they know or care about to get in trouble if the were-rat gets caught and beaten up or arrested or left in a ditch from their guards, the city guards, whatever. What do they care? There's more. And they'll hire them to steal the next petty nobility's prized ruby or something. It doesn't matter. Maybe the local magic school started dumping magical waste into the sewer, and it becomes mutagenic, and suddenly you have flesh warps running around there. Half rat, half snake, half festering mold, creating a giant monstrosity that needs dealt with, to the point where even the were-rats, the commoners, and the guards are just at the end of their rope trying to figure out what to do. All playing out while those above are unconcerned until they are the concerned party. And I do hope you enjoy these conversations. If you do, tell me how you've used sewers in the past in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe, maybe even share it around. It would really help. As always, I hope you enjoy these talks. Goodbye.